Welcome to the Charles Carroll Society. I am your host, the self-appointed bard of the American Readout. Today we're going to talk about land confiscation in South Africa and who is really responsible for the wretched condition that many people in South Africa find themselves in. If you're new to the channel, we cover politics, both local in the American Readout. One of the reasons that I cover South Africa for people who are kind of new to the channel is because I believe that South Africa could be what America will face eventually. One of the core reasons that socialism always fails. Malema, the leader of the Economic Freedom Foundation, tries to point to China as an example of a successful socialist state. But anyone who studies it more than 5 minutes realize that, yes, it's an autocratic ruled state, but China was nothing until they actually implemented what they call market liberalization, essentially implementing capitalism. The core wrong of socialism is that it does not accept anything above what the mob of the people, as they call it, want. If you hear Malema talk, he says, hey, we are following the South African Constitution. We're following the law. You can't follow the law to do something that's morally wrong. Socialism denies that there's something above the will of the people that is morally wrong. What would happen if America, the majority of whites who lived in America, voted slavery back in? Would that be morally right? Hey, they could actually follow the Constitution, repeal the constitutional amendment that outlawed slavery, and then vote in and say we want to re-implement slavery. And we would have every right in America to pick up arms and start killing people left and right. Why? Because slavery's morally wrong, even if the people changed the Constitution legally and voted it in. This is a concept of Western civilization. Christians understand this, that there is morality and rights that are above the state to take, or a group of people to take, even the majority to take. For this video, we're focusing on the fact that Christians understand that private property is a moral institution with moral rights attached to it. As I tried to study the conditions of many of the South African majority. Remember, 30% of farms are owned by blacks. The majority of the land in South Africa is owned actually by the state already. I will say that again. 30% of farmlands are owned by blacks. And the majority of the land in South Africa is owned by the state. So one of the things that Christian thought on private property would say is, if you want to rectify the wretchedness of the people, you need to do so in the least intrusive manner. However, the question one can reasonably ask is this wretchedness caused by these white farmers owning 70% of the privately owned land? Remember, the state of the South African state owns the majority of the land in the country already. The past prime minister got into bed with a couple of three brothers from India, and known as the Guptas, Guptas. These three brothers and the past prime minister of South Africa essentially looted the country, looted South Africa. So is the wretchedness that the South African people now suffer, is it because of the white farmers or the absolute corruption of Zuma and others like him at the ANC? This one issue that we found was that Zuma stole 7 billion rand from Eskom. To put 7 billion rand into perspective, that would be enough to buy 1,400 farms at 5 million rand each for black farmers. Currently, 1,400 additional farms could be purchased willingly if the leadership of the ANC had not stolen the money from South Africa. Is the wretched condition of the poor blacks in South Africa currently in the year 2018 the cause of the racially minority group of farmers who own a bit of land? Remember, the state owns the majority of the land, and the state has been looting the country. Who's responsible for the wretched condition? Doesn't it sound a lot like the ANC, knowing that their leadership has looted the country over the last 20 years, is trying to find a scapegoat, an easy focus for the majority to say those people are the reason for your wretched condition? The government of South Africa spent 220 million rand to create a milk farm called the Vrede, Vrede. Yes, name butcher. That's what I'm a name butcher. I just blame my public education, but I try. So this milk farm, literally the money that the South African government pulled in, they were going to build a milk farm and hire many rural blacks into good paying jobs. Instead of that money going into the milk farm, the ANC leadership conspired with the Gupta brothers to steal $220 million of South African money. That was enough to buy an additional 44 farms at 5 million rand each for black farmers. It is estimated that that the ANC leadership, Zuma, and these Indian Gupta brothers stole from South Africa's taxpayers around 50 billion rand in the last 3 years alone. Not total, just in the last 3 years. 50 billion rand could have purchased 10,000 farms for black farmers at 5 million rand each. Why, if you're going to say you're wretched, and I believe reason people could say that there are many poor black people in South Africa who may live in a wretched condition, we'll accept that. But is stealing a few thousand farms from white farmers the cause of your wretchedness in 2018? While you're letting your leaders in the ANC loot the country where you could be, they have stolen so much land or so much money that they could be buying tens of thousands of farms, tens of thousands, over 10,000 farms at 5 million rand each. It's interesting to watch the Guptas, as I did my study of the Guptas, these Indian brothers. These Indian brothers had a wedding that lasted for a week and cost hundreds of millions of dollars, paid for by South African taxpayers. They chartered a major airline, the whole jet, and flew in entire staffs of Indian, because you know what? Africans can't cook. To have Indian food, one of the chefs was provided his own servants. All of this money was seized, stolen from the South African taxpayers, both black and white. And when black politicians tried to point out the corruption, the leadership in the ANC fired them, silenced them, and threatened them. And now the leadership of the ANC and the leadership of the EFF, instead of calling for the cleaning up of corruption in South Africa, are pointing the finger at white farmers as being the cause of the wretchedness in South Africa. Why are the people of South Africa, why is it Malema of EFF? Why aren't the protesters focusing on the corrupt leadership of the ANC with the same energy and vigor they focus on a minority group that owns some of the farmland? In relieving the wretchedness of the people, you have to look at the least intrusive way to do it, or you are committing an injustice, and an injustice can be morally fought against using all means at your disposal. I would encourage the people of South Africa, both black and white, to focus on the corruption that has cost you tens of thousands of farms, which could have been simply purchased. You could have taken that money, billions and billions of rand, and basically the state owns most of the land in South Africa. You could just walk through the state's own land and start carving up the state-owned land in 5-acre farms for the people and using the money of the state to help these people get started. You wouldn't have to seize anybody's land. You would just use the state land and this money to create new farms. I encourage the Africans in South Africa to take a look at this corruption and think through who truly is the cause of the wretched condition of many poor in South Africa. Viva Crystal Ray, Viva Crystal Ray, Viva Crystal Ray, y the Virgin of Guadalupe.